We can see hear you. Oh, they can hear us the whole time. Amazing.
Okay, that's good.
Sorry if I swore a little bit during that process.
Let's kick it off.
Let's kick it off. Okay, give us a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear us all okay. We're finally here with Sim. What a process. But thank you all for bearing with us and for moving on over. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Ola. Cool. So welcome to our 4th episode of Talking Talent. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you are returning, amazing. Thanks for sticking with us. A few little housekeeping things before we get into it. If everyone could just make sure they can use the chat on the right. As we can see, there's people in there already, which is great. We're going to use that a lot today because the best question of the day is going to win one of our Kick into Gear video kits, which super fancy. There are gadgets in there to help you film from anywhere, and some jelly beans and some socks. So it's well worth getting in there. Sim, you might even win one too. See how we go.
You do get a chance to ask a question at the end. So
that might be the best question of the day.
Before we jump in, we did have a quick shout out. We wanted to thank Robert Keyworth. He was at our session last time with James Ellis. He's the APAC TA manager over at Sin7 in New Zealand. And we just love the feedback that he shared. We just couldn't be more rapt about. He said the conversation with James just really sparked an aha moment for him around employer brand. And he a rough quote was around, we can be natural, we can be authentic, we can do post videos, employer questions, but what's that core story we need to share with candidates, the truth about why people work there and what's that exchange of value for them. So he was so excited about that. He walked away and shared that with his whole team. And we just love that. That's what this is about for us. So that was good to hear.
So any more aha moments, send them through because we like them. Okay, cool. Let's talk about today's episode with Sim. So Sim is head of talent at Sportsbet, and we are so grateful for her joining us today. She is an incredible people leader and has so much wisdom around TA to share with us. So welcome, Sim.
No pressure.
Finally. To the virtual stage. Just quickly before we jump into it, I just want to summarize, I guess, the two kind of core topics that we're going to be talking about today. So the first is the growth that we have seen in employer branding, and I guess its impact on the traditional role and function of TA. So really keen to get your personal experience, Sim, and some advice as well for anyone looking to perhaps pivot from TA to employer branding or to bring that kind of skill set into their current repertoire. And the second is the, I guess, unique talent attraction challenges that you are facing at Sportsbet and some examples of how you are communicating your AVP through all of the amazing work that your team is doing there. So how's that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
Woohoo! All right, great. Well, let's just kick things off with a quick little icebreaker. So for those, I'm assuming many of you on the call know who Sportsbet are as a company, but Sportsbet is an online gambling company. And as I mentioned kind of before, we're going to be talking about the talent attraction challenges that you might be facing in your current role, Sim, a bit down the track. But we were just really keen to start with, I guess, to hear what personally got you over the line to join the team at Sportsbet.
Yeah, sure. And thank you so much for the opportunity. It's so lovely to see a lot of familiar names and faces on the chat today, and also some new ones, which is great. It was a really interesting one, actually, with Sportsbet. I moved across from Telstra, and this is going to sound cheesy, but it's absolutely true. It's the people that I met along the way throughout the selection process that really got me over the line. To be honest, when I first sort of got approached about the role, I wasn't no in terms of the industry, but I was sort of like, that's made me stop and think. And we actually hear a lot of people say that as well. And I think the genuine authenticity and the passion of the people that I met throughout the selection process, which was a really good cross-selection of stakeholders as well across the business, that's what definitely made me more curious. And then it was the appetite for the business to really take it to the next level around its talent function. And then I think the last thing, again, it might sound cheesy, but we have a value putting the customer first and last. And I think that constant pursuit for that, last, I should say, in terms of we start everything with the customer, we finish everything with the customer in mind, that really resonated with me. And I love working for organizations where that really comes true. So they're probably the main ones.
Beautiful, not cheesy at all. Awesome. So let's jump into, I guess, the first topic of the day. As I mentioned before, employer branding has gained some serious momentum, especially over the last, few years. And I guess in some cases, it's still trying to find its place. So it's either being handed to the TA team to be kind of figured out on by them, or in other cases there's newly dedicated roles and there's a lot more emphasis on it as a function. So I guess we'd really like to hear what your opinion is about the recent upswing in employer brand, I guess, demand, and how that has really impacted the evolution of TA.
Yeah, sure. And it is a really relevant and great question. So kudos to you for raising it. I think really for me, I think one of the biggest things I've learned, particularly of recent times, is that EB isn't, in my view, just a TA accountability. Whilst in some businesses the strategic ownership might sit with TA or one other function, it's the whole organisation's responsibility to get involved. And it does span across multiple teams. So, in the businesses I've worked within, whilst it may have a home in one particular function or space, it touches so many businesses, and the businesses that tend to do it most successfully seem to be those where there is that real collaboration happening. And, that can include teams that might be really obvious, like TA, HR, marketing, media. It can also include the tech space as well, legal components. It takes an army to really get it working effectively. And I think to the point that you mentioned, in terms of TA evolving and is the TA role dead, I definitely think it isn't. I'm not just saying that because I'm in the TA space, but I think now more than ever, we require the expertise of talent teams, but perhaps not in the traditional ways that we have maybe been used to. And I think what I mean by that is, as technology strives forward, you've got the markets evolving, customer and candidate expectations are increasing, and everyone becomes time poor. I really believe that there's a craft and a capability skill set that comes as part of a talent manager, talent partner role. And it's important more than ever. I think, there's the influencing, there's the negotiating, there's the crafting insights that help inform and underpin strategic talent decisions in the business. And really importantly, there's the element of how we even capture and engage talent, which is where the EB piece really comes into the fold. So I think it's being driven by multiple forces. I certainly think, as I said, candidate expectations are driving that. We all expect more in terms of customer experience now, and it should be no different from a candidate experience perspective as well. As products and services evolve, so does our expectations in all other elements of our lives. So definitely don't think the TA role is dead. I think that there's probably a morphing of skills, but you get that in any industry, and I think it's just a really exciting space.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that, EB is really everyone's responsibility too, like you were saying. And I guess really having that talent experience and expertise is more important than ever these days too. So it's kind of a nice little segue into the next question, which we have on previous episodes of Talking Talent been asked before from attendees about how they could, I guess, stretch more from TA into EB. So like we were saying, you were saying, like morphing the skills. And we know that you have been doing that yourself in your career. So what would your advice be for anyone currently in TA who, know they need to upskill, but like, where do they even start? And perhaps even the business doesn't quite yet acknowledge the importance of EB. So what do you suggest that they do?
Yeah. And again, another really good question. I'm not saying that for the sake of it. It's really funny. I think I was going to say it's a hot topic. It's not just a hot topic now. I think it's always been a conversation that dovetails really nicely into career development. And we actually had a careers dev fest at Sportsbet recently where I was part of a panel, and the panel was sort of talking about how do I take that next leap, whatever it might be, whether it be a lateral move, whether it be a promotion, where do I begin to sort of even think about broadening my skills or learning more? And sometimes the reason I mention that is I think sometimes you can overthink things. And I personally can be a big doer of this. But I think on reflection about this, I think don't overthink it. I know that sounds easier said than done, but it really depends on how you learn and how you develop best. I think it's important to remember that small actions matter too. And, I'd really encourage individuals to really start with the basics, dedicate your time to really building out your networks in the employer brand space, both in Australia and importantly, globally. I think it's important to remember that global element. Australia is doing a lot of amazing things when it comes to employer branding, and we're moving at a really rapid rate of knots. However, there's definitely some really fast traction, and some might even argue, and I would tend to agree, that globally there's probably a little bit more advancement in employer branding in some instances. And so I think connecting with networks in those spaces is really important. So I think that's something really easy you can do. Again, depending how you learn, reading white papers and case studies, many of which you can get for free. There's a lot of really good content on employer branding and employee value proposition out there. And I think just volunteering, go to talent networking events. Like, this is a great forum for how you can meet people, but also volunteer to get more involved in things as a side project. You don't have to go from 0 to 100. I remember I first started getting involved in employer branding pieces where I actually went along really just as a participant because I wanted to learn. I didn't necessarily have a key role to play, and it was great just actually having the ability to be a fly on the wall and almost soak up and absorb some of that knowledge going around. So I think that would be sort of my tip about where to start. And then obviously you can complement that with more formal learnings, and it can be certifications, which is something I've just recently done. You can obviously go and do grad certs that specialize in, but you don't necessarily have to do that right from the get-go, or ever, if you don't choose to. I think you've got to tailor to your learning style and what you're looking to get out of it. In terms of the question you mentioned as well around if your leadership don't see the value of it, I think the sentiment seems to be that this is shifting, but it's still a really big challenge. I feel really fortunate at Sportsbet that there's a real appetite for it, which means the conversation is, I guess, open to be explored more, which is great. And we have significantly invested in EB in different ways. But I think the best way that you can probably start to get it on the agenda is really demonstrating return on investment in meaningful ways that are going to be easy to understand and that the business can resonate with. And I generalize when I'm about to say this, but the EB space can be really creative, very innovative, very strategic in some senses. And I think it's important not to lose sight around some of the business drivers for why you want to incorporate EB. And there's some really good metrics that you can use to flesh that out. And I think it's about individuals connecting the dots for the business to say it's not just a nice to have EB. I was just on a conversation with Brooke in our team actually before this, where we were talking about, well, where do you even start with formulating an EB strategy and getting it on the table? And my suggestion was you're really linking it back to core business objectives and then trailing it on to, if we are to achieve that, these are the people, the talent items that need to happen, and therefore the EB pieces. So I think linking it to metrics and keeping it simple are good starting points.
Such great advice. And I also loved how you said that, if you want to morph into the EB space, like, you don't have to go in as an expert. You can go in as a participant to start, like, just get started, just read blogs, just consume as much information as you can online. And then, your tip around linking it back to business metrics and drivers. Amazing. Jay?
Yeah, cool. So quick shout out for any questions, but I'll kick off with a few from my end as well. So Sim, we know that when you came into Sportsbet, there was a structure there for the talent function that you implemented that was kind of a bit more cross-functional than what you had in the past, and bringing that employer brand piece into that. Do you want to just talk through what that team structure is and how you've set it up?
Yeah, sure. And I think when we chatted last, I mentioned we've gone through a really exciting evolution in our talent space. We had a talent team before, or a talent acquisition team, I should say. When I joined, it's just on 12 months ago. I cannot believe that it has already been 12 months. Time has flown, but really proud of what we've achieved as a team. And again, I don't say that to be cheesy, because it has actually been a whole team effort. It's not one person. And we went on a journey where we went through some really significant growth over the course of last year, and had further plans as a business for growth as well. And I think, we also acknowledge that as a talent function, we needed to evolve and adapt to the business's changing needs. And so part of that meant redesigning the capability and the services that we wanted to be able to deliver in-house to the business, and then also crafting an operating model that would suit that, as well as the budget pieces that all coincide with that. And so really there were fundamentally a few key things. We redefined our services. We included the ability to deliver on employer brand components, which we hadn't wholeheartedly done before. We evolved our capability and capacity around metrics and reporting, and also our capability around strategic sourcing. So being really proactive in how we approach talent, and being more creative in the channels that we use. Probably one of the other big fundamental things is that we also went from aligning by division. So we used to be internally aligned by, say, for example, the operations space, by the finance space, by media marketing, to actually what I would refer to as talent segmentation aligned. And for us, that was something that was really important to achieve, I believe, because of the nature of how Sportsbet operates. That enabled our team to not be aligned by internal divisions that might not mean anything externally to the market. We were now aligned by key talent segments such as tech-related spaces like software engineering, data engineering, data science and analytics. And that enables the team to not only have stronger networks externally, it allows them to also have more meaningful conversations with talent externally as well, as opposed to covering a portfolio internally that could have, 100 different role types associated with it. So that was one of the big changes that we made. And then, of course, recruiting an absolute kick-ass team. So we recruited a number of superstars in the team who have all settled in really well. And yeah, over the last few months, because of that, we've really been able to evolve our employer branding assets. We've really been able to launch a new careers site. We've contributed to the evolution of the Sportsbet EVP. The team have also managed to greatly reduce our reliance on third-party suppliers, being recruitment agencies, and also doubled our referral rate through hires and different sourcing channels. So it's been a whirlwind over the last 12 months, but that's sort of the big call outs, I guess I'd say.
Yeah. Nice. And in that timeline that you were just talking about there over the last year, was there a moment there where you felt like you'd hit the biggest growth curve for you, or development curve for you personally, and taking on more of that scope? I mean, obviously you said you've got a kick-ass team there to help do it, but yeah, what was there like a moment there where you're like, this is a real sharp curve for yourself in that journey?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Absolutely there is. And I think for me, it was probably right on the precipice of shifting the model in terms of the concept and design in my mind to vocalizing that with senior stakeholders for endorsement. We move really quickly at Sportsbet, and one of the reasons I love joining is because you get stuff done, unlike other places I've been in where at times there's really valid reason for it, but you go through a number of hoops to achieve something. But there still was a lot of rigor, and rightly so, that went into that. And I think that was a really steep learning curve for me. I've been part of transformational change before, but what I was ultimately doing was really selling a concept for an idea I had in my mind, or a vision around what the TA team should be constructed like. And it was really different to anything that we'd ever had here before. So that was a really sharp learning curve. But when I look back now and yeah, again, it might sound cliche, but grew a lot from that.
Mm-hmm. And do you, like, in terms of that pitch, I guess, if back to the business, like, what if you could put a headline on it, like the value prop that you presented to them? Do you remember what it was?
Well, it's funny. We always had the ambition of becoming a world-class talent function. That's what we wanted to be. We didn't want to be okay. We didn't want to just improve slightly. We were wanting to go for the ultimate, which was being well known in market for all things talent, whether that be from a people leader experience perspective, whether that be from a candidate experience perspective, whether that be from an awareness and consideration perspective for people that hadn't even contemplated Sportsbet as a potential employer. And then from a team perspective, we wanted to have a fun environment where you could really come to work, make a difference, and watch the transformation unfold. So I guess not necessarily one tagline, but I do remember saying the line many a time that we were aiming for a world-class TA function, not just, run of the mill, if there is such a thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. No other questions on topic number 1 at this point?
Cool.
Yeah.
Like Jay said before, if there's any that come up throughout the chat, feel free to drop them on the side there and we'll get to them in the next part. Cool. So next topic, Sim. So as we all know now, you are the head of talent of Sportsbet. And as I mentioned before, that is an online gambling company, which I assume comes with talent attraction challenges, very unique to the industry. And it's probably a bit of a strong contrast from your previous role at Telstra as, in itself. So can you tell us a little bit about those unique challenges that you're facing? And I guess, how do you go about navigating this and really attracting the right talent segments to Sportsbet?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting one. As I mentioned, we've kind of gone through an evolution over the last 12 months in the talent space at Sportsbet. And I think probably one of the things that's helpful or relevant to call out is we have quite a unique setup or structure, in the sense, which I actually love and was one of the reasons why I fell in love with the role. We have, I guess, 3 key areas that we're accountable for. There's the employer branding, there's the talent acquisition, but then importantly, the talent management piece. So it's the whole talent piece as a collective, which is really interesting. And in some businesses, they can sit really quite separate or distinctive from each other. So it's probably really helpful to kind of share that context as well. But yeah, we have gone through the evolution recently, and we're kind of at the stage now where I'd say we have certainly built the foundational pieces and are starting to really get our hands into some really cool creative work. And part of that is the attraction piece. And yes, we certainly do face our fair share of, I guess, attraction challenges. I think there's probably a couple of things. I think given the nature of the industry we work within, yes, it is challenging, but when I actually reflect on it, this is actually really quite a common thing despite what industry you're in. It just comes, I think, personally in different levels. So I've engaged with peers and colleagues before who have been in the alcohol industry, the pharma industry, and they've had similar challenges. So I definitely don't think of it as unique. The reason I share that is because as a talent community, I like to think that we, work collectively and we're a stronger force together, even though we are in a war for talent. I do know that. But, we all face similar challenges, probably just in varying degrees and levels. And so I think the first thing I'd say for me, for our industry, is there certainly is a consideration around the type of industry that we work in, being online wagering. And do you know what? That's not going to appeal to everyone. And I think the really important thing is that's okay. It doesn't need to appeal to everyone. I'm not looking for it to appeal to everyone. I think it does present some unique challenges. And I sort of said, I think other businesses and industries certainly face this from a talent perspective. It's really been about identifying where we want to double down on and what we want to be known for. I think that's really important. And then that helps tie back to our employee value proposition and I guess the anchor points to that. And yes, we're an online wagering business, but we are also pretty switched on.com and a data business. And we also have some of the best tech stack going around. And I say TA tech stack and broader tech stack as well. And, we move at fast pace, we reward innovation, and we have a culture that many businesses, would actually be envious of. So I think there's a lot of really good selling points, but I think there's a recognition about, it isn't going to float everyone's boats, but that's totally fine. From there, once you kind of identify your unique anchor points, I think it's really about how we deliver that message authentically to market. And that comes to life through our employer brand strategy. And as I said at the top of the session, that really involves the whole business getting involved if it's going to have success. And it's also ensuring that we arm the talent team with a suite of tools, resources, and collateral that's really going to ensure they can engage with candidates and prospective individuals in meaningful ways. And, I think there's a really big increase now on personalization of experience. As I said earlier, as customers of certain companies, whether it's, Telstra that you have your mobile and your internet through, or whether it's Amazon shopping online, we all have really high expectations when it comes to customer service. And actually what we've seen from market insights, but also from experiences from the Sportsbet talent team is candidate journey expect no different, and even from a people leader perspective. So I think that's also really important as well.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of quality over quantity, which should be something we live by in everything that we do.
Absolutely.
And I like the comparison, the customer experience and the candidate journey should really be interlinked. Awesome. So next little question, like you said before, the talent function at Sportsbet is still relatively new, a year in, I think you mentioned before. And now, employee brand is a dedicated pillar within that function too. So I guess, could you give us some examples about how you have gone about communicating your EVP or those anchor points as you referred to before? And some examples, I guess, of the executions that the team has played out.
Yeah, absolutely. And full disclosure, this has been a team effort. It is absolutely not just me. So I think it's important to call out there. So I think, again, another call out would also be that I would probably say we definitely have an EVP at Sportsbet, and we have had one in place for some time. I think we would definitely say we are just passing, I guess, the foundational stages of our employer brand journey, and still in some regards in the infancy of our EVP in terms of the communicating of it externally. A lot of work has been done internally to communicate it. However, I guess where we're at currently, we've recently checked in on our EVP, and I guess that was to make sure from a relevancy perspective that it's still hitting the spot. And that's been a HR piece, not just a talent piece. It's been led by the OD team, but then also Keela, our employer brand lead, has been actively involved. So we've spent a lot of time asking employees as well around that are in those different talent segments that I spoke to earlier, what really resonates with them. Why are you proud to work for Sportsbet? What keeps you engaged? And so those core set of questions we have embarked on asking the different talent segments to get some meaningful information. And that sort of allows us to have not only a holistic overarching EVP, but also to have more personalised ones based on talent segment, which is something we have been really focused and intentional about doing as part of our EB strategy. We've also identified opportunity to, I guess, up our game when it comes to sharing, as I said, our EVP externally. And, I think if I had $1 for every time in the last 12 months, and I fall into this category myself, where people sort of have said, oh, I've heard really good things about Sportsbet, and when I joined, the culture it's blown me away. It's surprised me even more so than I thought it could. And I'm not saying that just for this webinar. That is genuinely the feedback that I hear the team here, that the team share with me. And so for me, that is a really big light bulb moment of there is so much more opportunity from an employer branding and EVP perspective that we can kind of jump on and leverage. And so there's a lot of things we're doing that I guess underway. We have done a refresh of our employee generated content and assets. So both images, written stories, short form, long form videos. We've also launched a new career site. So we launched at the end of the year. That was a very interesting process. I think I aged 10 years in that process, but it was absolutely worthwhile doing. And then we went through almost like a phase 2 of the career site and got our design team involved to go for gold. And we released that new upgrade, it'd be about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So very proud of that. And again, huge team effort. Some other things we've been working on is creation of an ambassador program to really help share the authentic stories of our employees, both actually internally and externally. Creation of a content calendar for our socials. And the key for that is that the social calendar aligns to key business objectives that we know are happening in different spaces. So if we know we've got a ramp for hiring data scientists, then we will start planning content and campaign work in advance. And that is something that we in fact actually did in the data science space back in October, November, over two phases. And probably the other piece is we've spent quite a bit of time, but still a lot of work to do in this space, uplifting the content on our socials. So the team have created a Work at Sportsbet Insta. We've also spent a lot of time really sharing new, fresh, relevant content on LinkedIn and working on sort of creating some company life pages and some dedicated talent segment pages on our careers site. And then I think the other piece finally that's on the horizon that we've done, the team to their credit have done some really great inroads on, but still a lot for us to do, is early education and upskill of people leaders in the employer brand and EVP space. That is something that at the moment we're tending to be doing sort of through one-on-one coaching when a people leader has a role currently. But we've also sort of done what we call sort of some lunch hunt sessions with people leaders and given them some tips on how to amplify their personal brand through their LinkedIn profile and other aspects like that. So a lot going on, still a lot to do, but we're really proud of what we've achieved.
Yeah, it's an amazing list of very practical examples. I feel like I'll go back and watch this and point it out for everyone because that was really helpful. And also I just love the point of, or I guess the emphasis on communicating the EVP both internally and externally. I think that's something that, we should all kind of really strive for. So I think it's up to you, Jay.
Yeah, cool. Couple of follow-up questions there, Sim. So the first one here, so the online wagering category per se of, I'm curious on what are those assumptions that people do have about working in a company that works in that category and the culture that might exist there. Like, what are those assumptions that people come in with? And is it about the work that you've been doing? Is it about debunking some of that, or is there elements of that are worth leaning into? As you said, it's not for everybody, but somebody will align with it.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're both on fire with your questions. Thank you. I think with this one, and as with any business, people will make assumptions. I think one of the key aspects for the talent space at Sportsbet is that our corporate brand audience and employer brand audience are actually really quite different. And again, that's not unique to us, but I think it is particularly heightened given the nature of the industry we work in. And why I mention that and why I think it's important is there's definitely parts to lean on. And there are also myths that are worth debunking. But it's always got to be underpinned by authenticity in what we're sharing, and it's got to always tie back to our values. We, again, not to sound cheesy, incredibly values-driven brand. And if every day I hear some genuine reference to values, and so we really want that to shine through in what we're sharing. It's not about being defensive or anything like that. And so I think some of the things that probably stand out for me is the brand is fun and playful, and that is definitely something that we lean into because that's actually the culture. But I think importantly, when you start to tie that down to a segmented EVP, fun means different things to different people. So we talk about the fact that someone who might be more introverted versus extroverted might have different versions of fun. And so what we mean by having the segmented EVP is we can display what fun can mean in different ways. It's not about, having loud events and who's the loudest speaking in a room. It shines through in different ways. I think the other thing as well, assumptions people have is we are known for being a market leader in both the tech and app space. And we produce for our customers the best experience possible. And we're really passionate about that. And that is absolutely something that we lean on. I think probably some of the myths that are worth debunking, or that we do try and do authentically through employee stories, is that our employee demographic is the same as our customer demographic. That's worth debunking this, as it isn't the case. And many people talk about how surprised they are when they join Sportsbet about that. And that's, again, one of those EB opportunities. I think because of the industry we operate in, I think there can also be a bit of an assumption that we have little regard for corporate social responsibility. It's all about profit and things like that. Again, that goes against the grain of every value that we have. And so that is absolutely worth debunking. And the reality is that actually we have some of the most passionate and caring team members out there, and actually are industry leaders in many of the safer gambling initiatives that we have. And so often people will ask that question because they want to find out more. And it's actually then a key reason why people decide to join, particularly if, to begin with, as I said with myself, the industry kind of just made me stop and pause and actually reflect. And so people have really meaningful questions on that. And so again, that's a myth to debunk because it couldn't be, more different actually. So yeah, that's probably what I'd say on that angle.
Yeah, cool. And as that plays out, do you find, like, what would you say is kind of the mix of people coming into wagering as this is their first time into that category versus people that are coming across from some other, talent that's already in that space? Is it a high proportion that's coming into this space for the first time, and you're able to set a new kind of perception with them?
Yeah. Again, another great question. Yes, actually. And that surprised me when I joined Sportsbet. I've never been in the wagering industry prior. And actually, yes, a lot of people that are wanting to join Sportsbet, they're joining us for those reasons that I said earlier. They've heard really great things, or they've started to see really great things about the type of tech stack we use. They want to work in a business that moves at pace. I've never worked in a business that has moved this quickly but still has the right protocols in place. They want to work for somewhere where innovation and curiosity is rewarded. And so I think they're the things that are attracting people, and actually why we've got a lot of people that have joined that actually have never worked in the wagering industry before.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. I got one more here for you as well. So I think you've touched on this in a few different answers here, but around, how do you think about the role of current employees in helping shift those perceptions? I think you've mentioned a few times around the ambassador type programs and stuff like that. And I mean, an extra piece to this is, I mean, as a marketer myself, like I generally believe that the story is always better told by somebody else other than the marketing team and getting that all consistent. So yeah, I'm curious on how you think about that from a current employee perspective.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think, my view on this is that it's not about shifting. It's about being authentic and letting the true culture of Sportsbet shine externally and organically. And I think employer brand is like I said earlier, is an entire business responsibility. I will sound like a broken record. That doesn't mean every single person in the business every single day has to do something that's EB related. But, if I've just had a really great experience with colleagues and I want to share something on LinkedIn, that's a perfect example of doing that. It doesn't have to be this really well-constructed message. And I think, apart from employer brand being an entire business responsibility, everyone wants to work with the best people. So, I'm always saying, we've all got an active responsibility to play in that, because we've all got a vested interest. You want to work in a team where you feel supported, where you're learning from the best, most creative, innovative people around you. And that's a real way to take ownership of that. I think, as I said, you've got to share the load and spread it wide. We try and have as many people involved in different forms of employer branding work that we do. Yes, we have the ambassador program. We have probably about 50, 60 individuals roughly at the moment participating in that. Some do regular content, others kind of contribute once a quarter, others it's just if they've got a super passionate topic that they want to talk about. We also have pieces around referrals and also sharing when new joiners commence. So again, that shares messaging. And I think as well, to your point, people trust content of colleagues and those in their network far more than they do a corporate message. That is something that is resoundingly backed up by fact. And so we can post something, and we will continue to do, from sort of a Sportsbet lens on LinkedIn, but and there's a time and a place for that, but the content that certainly resonates and gets the most organic cut through is definitely those stories shared by real people who work here.
Yeah, that reminds me, because we ran a program for a little while last time. We still do run it a bit, where we were sharing content on LinkedIn, pretty much same video, same piece of content that was employee generated stuff, right? Shared on the company feed on LinkedIn. You might get a couple of people click the buttons, like it. If you share from the personal profile of the same person in the video, like it's chalk and cheese. It's always so much more authentic when it's shared by the person who created it. And I mean, obviously, with that kind of the kind of work that you guys have, it's going to be pretty hard to make those programs a success if the employees don't believe in it, they don't feel it reflects their voice, and therefore willing to share it onto their network.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a nice little segue into this final bonus question we have for you, Sim, before we wrap things up. So recently you participated in our widget pilot, where we worked with a number of different companies to help build a library of employee story videos. So again, elevating the authentic stories of your people and building that trust with candidates. And we're just really keen to hear about your experience, and I guess like what was your biggest learnings from that process?
Yeah, absolutely. And at that point, we hadn't yet had Keela commence in the employer branding role. So I was doing a little bit of double hatting, feeling in one of those situations where I'm probably not doing either role super amazingly, but trying to do my best. And it came along at the perfect time, actually, the widget pilot. And it's going to, learning wise, I think actually one of the things, and again, this is going to sound, I'm just going to sound like I've just got a full suite of cliches to share, but it's true. Going through the widget pilot, because I was facing into each of our employees, we had about 18, 19 videos that we actually ended up creating as part of the widget pilot. As I was going back, reviewing them and editing them, not editing them to change the wording, but just kind of topping and tailing and putting in the subtitling, it was really powerful watching those videos back. And I was sort of quite loose with just a couple of guardrails around topics that I was hoping employees would want to chat to, and actually let them pick which of those topics then resonated most with them, and actually said to them, this isn't meant to be super polished, it's meant to be authentic, it's meant to be the real you. And actually it unexpectedly caught me off guard when I watched the videos back to edit them, because it was just really powerful. And people shared snippets just in those 20, 30 seconds of videos that you couldn't get from reading a page of content or an advert or a PD, or even just looking at photos or wording on a careers website. So I thought it was a really great complementary piece to the careers site that we have. So that was probably one of the biggest learnings. I think the second learning was just remembering to keep it simple. And I think one of the team from Video My Job shared with me at the time about, if you want to keep it authentic but keep some guardrails on it, people can sometimes get a little bit scared if you don't have any guardrails, and they're sort of like, oh goodness, whoa, what could I possibly talk about? So giving sort of 3 or 4 topics that they could talk to, and then they can pick which one they would like. That helped point them in the right direction for them to then go and do what they wanted and what felt true to them. So they're probably the biggest learnings from the piece and reflections.
It's funny you say that, Sim, because I'm currently building out our own widget at Video My Job, and I'm doing the same thing. So I'm reaching out to the team and getting them to respond via video and encouraging them, like, ums and ahs are completely welcome and encouraged. But yeah, just to hear back in their language and their words about how they really feel about the company, their role, what it means to them to be part of the team. I've had moments too where I'm like, oh wow, like it makes you feel so grateful to be employed at a company that really supports their team and makes everyone feel so wonderful. But just, it's also just helping me write our own employer brand strategy in a way that's really reflective of our culture and our people and their worth. So
and that authenticity is just so true. I remember actually filming a video, and Dave Savelli there reminded me of this a little while ago, where I was sort of like, well, I'm going to have to lead by example, obviously, even though I hate doing videos, which is what everyone says, but you're fine when you do it. And I filmed one, it was close to Melbourne Cup Day last year, with my daughter Harriet, who was 1.5 at the time. I knew it was going to be a challenging idea, but I was like, I'm going to go with it. And I'm doing one film of it. And if she doesn't cooperate, then we'll just scrap the idea altogether. Of course, in the short 20-second filming, Harriet was kind of banging the desk in front of me. She was mimicking me, being absolutely like a toddler is. And I watched it back and I was like, do you know what? That's what my life is. Harriet joins me on calls when, she's sick home from childcare, and it's great to be in a place where I can do that and not feel that there's any judgment. And so I thought, gonna post it and share it, and so it got into the widget pilot. So yeah, absolutely, the real life is what you want to see.
Agreed. Cool. So we've got our last little segment, Jay. I'm not going to mess with the tech just because we had such a bad start, but I'll hand over to you for a second.
So basically, so you want me to just read out the question from James?
Yeah. I'll just explain what the session is.
So Sim, at the end of each one of these sessions, what we do is we get the guest to put forward a question that gets passed on to the guest of the next show. And so when they do it, they don't know who it is. They just know it's somebody going to be in the talent, employer brand space. So James put forward this idea of this couch money tactics. Like, what's the cheap tight ass? What's your favorite cheap tight ass tactic that you'll spend as little money as possible, but you think is just a winner that people should think about?
Oh my, what a good question. I reckon for me, going on the theme of what we've already spoken about, I think trial as many free things as you can. An example of that is, and this is going to sound like you guys have set me up. You haven't. Piloting the widget through Video My Job. At the time, I was sort of like, oh, I know I really should do it. I don't know if I've really got the time. I don't know what's going to come about of it. But was like, I'll just join the initial conversation, see how it goes. And it was really interesting and really relevant for what we were doing. That pilot landed into an extension that's then landed into this webinar that we're having, that's landed into other contacts in my network. And so I think trialing different things, get as many free things as you can. Many places will let you trial something for free if there's something in it for them. And you just never know where it's going to lead. And I think because we're talking getting best bang for buck, I'll throw in a second tip to give value for money. And that would be use your employee content. That is free. You don't need to pay employees that are genuinely engaged to share their content. Sounds really basic, but it's an untapped gold mine. So I would encourage people to do that too.
Awesome. And now, Sim, it's over to you. Get to ask a question.
Yeah, now it's your turn.
For the next.
I think my question, so as I said, we're on a journey and we have invested in our TA tech stack in the first 6 months, and we are continuing to invest more in the second half of the year. My question for the next person would be, what's the one piece of TA tech stack that you think doesn't get the credit it deserves, that's untapped potential?
That's a good one.
I like it.
Great. Thank you so much. That is the end of the session.
We got there.
We made it.
Hopefully some other people made it. We've
still got people here with us.
Awesome.
Persistence paid off. We didn't give up.
Exactly, and it was worth it. So I will make sure everyone who has joined us today will get the recording. We'll get that out to you hopefully by the end of the week. And just thank you so much, Sim, for joining us and for sticking with us and getting there. It's been such a valuable session, and so many practical tips and advice that we're definitely going to turn into something and share it with the whole community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the opportunity to chat. And I'm going to do a cheeky little plug. We're about to post either this afternoon or tomorrow a new role in our team. So if anyone knows anyone in their network, it'd be rude not to share here. So
what role is it?
It is a talent business partner.
Ooh.
Yeah,
cool.
Permanent role in the team. So keep an eye out. And if you know anyone or you're interested, give us a shout.
Awesome.
Amazing.
And thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been lovely chatting.
No worries.
Our pleasure.
Thanks so much, Sim. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.